Hey there, this is Rebecca, and I'm going to teach you about glazing step by step. The first step is to wash all the pottery off with water. This gets rid of any excess particles you do not want on your pottery when glazing it. After washing off your pottery with water, you should wait at least 24 hours before glazing. This gives the pottery time to have the water evaporate inside so it can absorb more glaze later on. I buy my glazes in small 16-ounce jars. This one's a little bit empty, but when full, it can cover up to 3 to 10 pieces, depending upon the size of the piece. Glaze does settle, so you have to shake before glazing each piece. If you don't do this, the glaze may come out incorrectly. Finally, it's time to glaze. With this jar of glaze and this bamboo brush, I will be painting over this bisqueware and explaining the process. With this particular glaze, I usually put on heavy coats and apply multiple layers. So, after heavily saturating the brush with glaze, I apply the first layer. You want to spread the glaze evenly across the surface and make sure to go with the grain. After applying the first heavy coat, you must wait for the first layer to completely dry before adding the second layer. I am now letting the piece dry in real time. This video is not sped up or slowed down, and if you look closely, you can see the glaze slowly appearing to dry. Now it's time for the second layer. After applying the second layer of glaze, this layer will take twice as long to dry as the first layer because now there's 2 layers of glaze on top. This happens every time you add a layer of glaze, meaning that it takes even longer to dry as you add more layers. Now that there are 2 layers of glaze, it is less transparent and more opaque. Now you can watch the glaze dry again in real time. Usually, a piece needs about 3 to 5 layers of glaze, and when you're waiting in between each layer, the time adds up. So this takes quite a while to do. After all layers have been applied, I begin to clean the bottom edge. The reason you do this is so that the glaze doesn't run off the piece onto the kiln shelf and stick to the kiln shelf. If this does happen, sometimes the kiln shelf can be ruined, your piece can be ruined, or both. I usually leave about a ½ inch of space just so you can see the naked clay. Sometimes it's a nice look. Other times, I'll leave a large amount of space because I am unfamiliar with the glaze and I have no idea how much it'll run. Better to be safe than sorry. Glaze is easy to remove at this stage because all you need is a sponge with some water and a little bit of friction. Although it can be removed with water when it's on pottery, it can still stain your clothes. So you must be careful when applying glaze because you don't want to spill it anywhere else. Now that we have a base layer of glaze, we can start with the technique called layering. Layering uses 2 different glaze colors. The base layer, or the first glaze color, goes on the entire piece. After that first layer completely dries, you can add the second layer with a different glaze. Usually you only use that second layer of glaze on the top. Because you're using 2 glazes, not just one, and also layering them, the glaze can possibly run a lot more than usual. This is why we only put the second layer of glaze on the top of the piece, because if it happens to run, it will not run off the piece. The glaze I'm using is quite thick and is lacking some water. This is perfect for me because then I can apply heavy layers on top of the piece. If the layers I apply are too thin or I don't put on enough layers, the glaze may not come out the way I want it to. Both glazes have to be thickly and evenly applied so they can react properly in the kiln to make that new third glaze color. Not every glaze acts the same, so it's good to know which glazes you prefer and how they react in the kiln. Some glazes may react well with each other in the kiln, whereas others don't react as well. It's also good to know which clay you're using because glazes can react differently depending upon the clay body. Overall, just know that glazing is a long process. We're talking hours here. Whether it be deciding which glazes to use, which glazes to layer, and then actually applying the glaze, this can take quite a while. Now that everything is glazed and ready to go, it's time to load the kiln. This is a short, medium-sized kiln that I can fit about 2 to 3 shelves of pottery in. In a glaze fire, you don't want any of your pottery touching so it doesn't fuse together. This means the shelves can vary in height because you don't want the tops of your pieces touching the bottom of the shelves as well. Ready for the results? Here's some before and after pictures. I hope this video gave you more insightful information on how the glazing process works. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.